all know that IIT Kharagpur is one of the oldest and the brightest institutions in the world of IIT, the technology world, where the government thought at some point that yes, there should be some high-class institution where techies will come out and set an example worldwide. And yes, we have one such example right here with us, Mr. Arjun Malhotra. Arjun Malhotra, who is the co-founder of HCL, the Hindustan Computers Limited, and Headstrong, and has passed out from IIT Kharagpur in 1970. So that has been a very long journey for you, sir. Welcome to Sitare TV with me, Jasleen Khanuja, and let's discuss a little more about your beautiful and bright journey. So coming to 70s, when you passed out till present day, it's the millennium. We are way past the millennium. Well, it's been 17 years into millennium. So what major changes do you see in the IT world in all these years?
So when we started in the mid-70s, it was a hardware world. Hardware dictated what you did, and all the innovations were in hardware. I think as you came to the 90s, late 90s and into 2000s, it changed completely to software. And today's software dictates what you can do with hardware. The hardware is, of course, making lots of strides, but that's not the area that most people talk about. It's software. And in fact, software is going into every area, whether it's medicine, driverless cars, transportation, whatever you talk about today, software is what's leading it. So that's the major change we've seen. What you're seeing now is machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics that will come out from there. Now again, the robotic hardware came out a long time ago, but to make them more and more intelligent, if I use that term, you're going to see that happen today. You see it happening in medicine as we look at biotechnology, people's DNA. It's all coming out of software now. And you're going to see nanotechnology as a completely new kind of science, because it follows different laws of physics than the laws of physics, from what I understand. And that is going to make a major difference.
So, way back when we used to think that big mainframes are a very useful piece, and now we think, oh, who talks about mainframers? It is the world of advanced predictive analytics and autonomous vehicles, as you mentioned. So, someone who has that kind of a background, and who used to be thinking that, yes, I am a techie guy, I'm an IT guy, what they should be doing to survive in this market and being up to date.
So when I was younger, I would tell everyone, read like hell, because you have to stay updated with what's going on. So today, actually, the nice thing is I can give up a little bit on my reading. What happens is lots of people come to me for advice, money, and both, and they tell me about what they're doing. So in a way, they define the industry, the technology, and how they want to change it, and they educate me. So a lot of what I get, one reason I still spend half my time in Silicon Valley is because I get educated here about everyone wanting to change the world in their little world, and that becomes really useful. That's how I do it. So I tell young people today, just read. You have to stay on top of what you're doing. You have to know, you may not know everything, but you have to know a lot. You should be able to talk.
So, when HCL came up, the issues at that time were different. India was a different market. Even the global scenarios were different. And then gradually we saw that companies like Cognizant, which were not even based in India at that time, started growing up. And India, after liberalization especially, we saw that so many other companies have grown up, which pose a vendor competition right here in the US market. So, in your opinion, what is the survival strategy and the key to success?
So, the world is going to change. One thing you learn in the IT industry, and I guess in everything today, that the only constant is change. And so, as I always say, you got to play your cards. You obviously have to try and, like chess, think a few moves ahead. But you got to play your cards play your hand based on the cards you've got. So you look at, if a Cognizant comes up and they come up with something new, you have to look at why is the market accepting them, why are they good, and then how can I compete with them, and how can I then overtake them 2-3 years from now, do better in some area or whatever. You have to look at it that way. That's why it's a young person's game. As you get older, you've got to see to younger people. And today you've got a lot more. Earlier, a lot of it used to be my perception, my gut says do this. Today I have a lot more data and analytics on which to base my decisions. And so I have to use them, and I have to use them intelligently. I think that's where we're going. So competition is going to exist. It's not that it's not there. You just have to decide if you're good enough. So smart people, if you've got good people, smart people, they will give you the right advice as to what's happening out in the field and what you need to do. Then you just have to make sure you implement that.
Wonderful. I totally agree, Now, we are in Silicon Valley, and you said there is a lot to learn here. The culture is like more of a startup culture, So many entrepreneurs have come up. I think the number of tech entrepreneurs is way more than what we see back in the Silicon Valley of India, the Bangalore, or any other place way back in India. So I'm sure the environment here is more conducive to it. So let us know what is your take on this, and what are the key success points for coming up with good funding or raising an IPO?
Okay, so you're right about most startups here probably dealing much more with technology or cutting edge technology. I think the nice thing about India is people are looking not just to solve the problems of the world, but to solve the problems of India. And some of those technologies are what I call relevant technologies. They may have very little application here, but they are very important for India, and they are the relevant ones. Something too sophisticated may not work there. And so it's like you asked this question, the bullock cart is the same from the time I grew up to the time you were there. Why hasn't someone mechanized it or made it more efficient in some way? And that's a question I can't answer, because I think that definitely is a big market and someone should try and address it in an engineering kind of way. Now, what I would tell all startups is, first thing is you can't do it yourself. So try and get a team, try and find people who are, compatible chemistry-wise, but try and recruit people who are smarter than you. Because only then, and by the way, there are people there who are smarter than you. And listen to them, and that's the only way you'll grow it properly. I think the second thing is most people say, I want to go IPO. I always tell people an IPO is like getting married. The hard work starts after that. It's fun before. So don't think I go IPO and then all my problems are solved, because they're not solved. You become more publicly available. There's much more reporting, much more restrictions that are placed on you, because now there's public money that's being used. So just be careful when you dream of IPO. Yes, it makes your share tradable and all that stuff, but it comes with associated problems. And so I recommend, I don't know if I want to do an IPO again, right? It has its own issues. So I just want people to be aware of that.
So from investment point of view, what are your 2 cents on which is a better domain to invest in, if a company has to start up in the Bay Area?
There's no real domain. If you've got a good product and got a great idea, and you see a niche in the market, that's the best way to. You can't really say this domain or that domain. There are certain areas that are hot, analytics, things like that are hot for a while, then they cool off. And we've seen that happen. E-commerce was hot at some stage, etc., etc. Yes, but ultimately you've got to build a company that's going to last a long time. You can't go. I don't really believe in 9 months I'll cash out and I'll make my whatever million, billion, whatever you talk about. You want to build a company, you build a company that lasts forever, right? At some stage, if you build it right, someone will get interested in it.
So last but not the least, I want to ask you about Headstrong. What are the core strengths of the company and the core weaknesses, and how you are trying to overcome those weaknesses?
Okay, so we sold Headstrong. I don't run it anymore. We sold it in 2011. But in Headstrong, we focused on just one segment, which was the capital markets or investment banks. And we said in that segment, we will be the best in the world. And so the risk was that I didn't diversify. I didn't go into other segments. And we did 200 million plus in that one segment alone. So when the slowdown happened and the investment banks had problems, so you remember Merrill Lynch got bought by Bank of America, I think Lehman went down, all that stuff. Yeah, we had to ride through that and help them. And actually we increased our business at that time because a lot of them wanted help. on how to restructure and stuff like that. And we had the domain expertise to go in and help them at a cost point that they couldn't believe. And so that really worked in our favor. So I tell people, today I would tell people, focus. Don't worry about, if something happens here, what will I do? If you're focused and you have that domain knowledge, you'll always find a way to survive. Unless that whole market is going to vanish, which it isn't. Capital markets are not going to vanish. They might change and stuff. So my thing is focus, become the best in the world in something, and that'll really help.
That's a great advice. That's a great. Thank you so much for sharing.